The rally was, we here in Honolulu were just a part of that worldwide rally, as you mentioned. We first found out about the rally, just a pop-up on the phone, and my wife found out about it, so she reached out to this lady in Germany who actually initiated the entire rally. After that conversation, we thought we have to do this. This worldwide rally represented everything Aloha Freedom Coalition is about. We're about freedom, we're about liberty, we're about people being able to live their lives the way they want to live their lives. So when this came about, a worldwide rally, 100 cities globally, it was almost a no-brainer. This is something that we needed to participate in, and so we obviously joined and started the process 2.5 weeks ago, actually.
So what is the Aloha Freedom Coalition all about?
So the AFC, the Aloha Freedom Coalition, is an organization that was founded last September, and it was founded because we saw our rights being eroded. We saw the mandates being initiated by Governor Ige. We began to feel the effects of that. We saw the negative consequences in our workplace, in our classrooms, in our sports fields. We saw all of these different elements being crushed, being the liberty to do those things being taken away by mandates instituted by the governor. It seemed at the time when the pandemic first broke, it seemed it may have some validity. I think the people in Hawaii were actually okay with that. But after the second round and the third round, the renewal of the 60-day mandates, those emergency mandates, they kept coming and they kept saying it's getting worse and worse. It became more of a problem for the people of Hawaii. So AFC was formed because people began to question what exactly was the agenda for the mandates themselves.
Can you talk about the event, the speakers, the hula, and the people attending?
Yeah, the event on Saturday, the 20th, was fantastic. We worked really hard reaching out to a number of different people to participate, and we started at 1 o'clock. We went till 5 p.m. We started with a shofar. It was fantastic, and then wonderful hula came up. Then we had an opening prayer, and then we had a number of mainland speakers that came and shared. We had a number of local pastors and other speakers here from Hawaii. We had the brothers, the comedy group, the brothers. They were so much fun, and we were having a fantastic time. It was a day in the park. You know, it was sunny, it was windy, and we had some rain showers pass through. But nevertheless, for the people of Hawaii, the people who were like-minded, who wanted to be free, it was a wonderful day.
What is the AFC's relationship with Honolulu Police Department, and were they aware about the event at Kapiolani Park?
Well, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure about a relationship with them. We have, we've had events before. We've had events where we did a march downtown from the Blaisdell down to Honolulu Holly in the past, and the police were there, and they were really gracious. They assisted us as we went down. We had our own security team then, as we did on Saturday. And so our relationship with them has been really, really quite wonderful. And as a matter of fact, a couple of days before the event, I received a phone call from the police department. He was mentioning on the phone that he heard about the rally. He knew who we were. He knew that we had done peaceful rallies in the past, and he made the request, could he forward my phone number on to the local Waikiki precinct? I said, absolutely. You know, we're grateful the police are there. You know, we live in an unstable society, so for their presence to be there, we always embrace that. So we've never had anything but a really generous relationship with them.
Well, what time did they arrive at the event, and how were they acting when they arrived?
You know, the event started at 1 o'clock. I think the first officers started arriving around 1:30 or so. There was one patrol car that came and parked on the grass, and then subsequently, maybe another 15 minutes, a couple of other cars started arriving, and they began to trickle in between 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Each time, more and more officers, and it started to become a little bit disturbing. I noticed a lot of people in the crowd beginning to look over their shoulders, wondering, what is going on? What's all the police for? Why are they here? And to exasperate that, a lot of the police had riot gear on. They had vests on, mace hanging out, just various kind of intimidating outerwear, if you will, something that we're not used to. Especially when we're all sitting around in a big circle on the ground listening to speakers and hula dancers and comedy routines. Something was incongruent. It didn't seem to make sense.
How many police officers were there?
Well, like I said initially, there was only maybe 3 or 4, and throughout the day and up till about 3 o'clock, I would say at 3 o'clock there was 50 police officers there, and we actually had somebody do a head count. At the end, around 4 o'clock, there was 52 officers there, parked on the grass, all lined up, and then circling around, and then there were some different officers back behind a large monkey pod tree. I couldn't identify them; they were too far out, but I don't believe they were in blues. They weren't HPD. I'm not sure. They were HPD, but they were different. My experience, although I can't confirm that, is that they weren't in blue uniforms. I don't know what they were in. They stuck around in the shadows, and then they actually left. They actually left earlier than the rest of HPD.
Can you describe the crowd that attended, and how many people attended the event?
Yeah, the crowd was just a cross section of Hawaii. We had young keiki there. We had moms, little babies. We had every possible ethnic blend. We had the elderly. We had the kapuna, and as we got started, it was 100, and then it was 200, and then 300 and 500, and at the peak, probably around I'm guessing 3 o'clock or so, there was probably about 1,000 people there. There was some intermittent rainstorms, so you know how it is in Hawaii when a rainstorm comes, people kind of run away, but they didn't. A number of them did, but at the same time while the rainstorms were going on, the sense of intimidation grew. And I think there was a number of people who, the rainstorms happened, the police were kind of pressing in, they just said, maybe it's time to go home. So they did. So ultimately, we think the crowd at that point dwindled to around 500, something like that.
Yeah, at about 4:15 p.m., the HPD started circling the crowds and made arrests. Please, can you describe from your point of view what happened with HPD and the two people that were arrested?
Yeah, I was next to the stage, and of course it was level ground, so there was a lot of people. But what we noticed at around 4:30 or so, 4:20. A line of officers started going from Montserrat, where the cars were all parked. They approached the crowd, and they kind of began to encircle the crowd in a large scale, in a large diameter around the entire event. And that was 20 officers, something in that range. And then from where the police cars were, the officers kind of formed a V. It didn't appear to be a strategic V, although somebody from the back said it was definitely a V. And they just began to push right into the crowd. There was no sense of space. They weren't necessarily courteous, but they would step between mom and dad and over somebody's cooler, and they just kind of pushed into the crowd. They basically integrated themselves with the people that were there. So when I watched this, I thought, wow, this is not good. A couple of them approached me, asked me for my ID, which I declined, and felt like that I had committed no crime, nor was I going to. And so they just didn't seem to have a lot of courtesy for the people that were there at the event. They didn't exercise any real. They weren't violent. They weren't pushing, but they weren't courteous. They shared no aloha, and the people there were like, "Hey, we're so glad you guys are here." From the front, the speakers were affirming their presence. Actually, people were actually praying from them from the front, thanking them. The invitation for them to participate was wonderful, and they could have. They didn't. So that was my impression of their initial approach to the rally itself.
Back to our blue and whites. They are here to protect and serve as our wonderful employees in the HPD, paid by our tax dollars. Thank you so much.
After the arrest, did the event go on, or did the police shut it down?
No, the arrests actually were, that was kind of the apex of if there was a time of real unrest in the rally. When they came into the crowd, they were writing a few tickets to people here and there. They coalesced around a young man. He was standing there with his son at his side, young boy, maybe 5, maybe 7. This man was standing there with his hands in his pocket, ironically with a mask on. And I noticed one of the officers with his hand over his head. He was doing this. I don't know if you can see in the video, but he had his hand extended fully above his head with white gloves on, pointing down at this man. And when he did that, about 4 or 5 other officers coalesced around this man. And it became obvious that he was a target for something. Nobody knew what was going on. At this point, the people that were attending the rally realized something was actually going down. Moments later, a young lady with 2 kids by her side was there, and I saw the police getting around her, and she had a flag in her hand. I saw a struggle for the flag. I saw the police yank the flag from her hands, and ultimately it was on the ground, which I thought was ironic. And then they took her down. They took her down to the ground in really in a violent manner. It was totally unnecessary. They took her from a standing position to her face in the ground. And I think there's numerous videos out there that have been posted, although I know my understanding is a number of them have been taken down. But there are numerous videos out there from all shots, from numerous people that really reveal what actually happened there. And the videos speak for themselves. I don't have to do anything. The videos speak that it was what they did was unnecessary. After they did this, they stood her up and they walked the young man across back toward the patrol cars, and they took her, and they all walked back in a line. They basically backpedaled. And when they got back to their cars, they put the two folks that they had arrested in their car, and they began to exit the site. This all happened in the last 15 minutes, which they knew the end. So they, at 3:50, 3:45, we were ending at, 4:50, 4:45, 4:50. The event was ending at 5. They knew that. They decided to take this action to the end of this very moment. I really don't get it. So
overall, the event, it went well despite the 2 arrests. Talk about Chief Susan Ballard's claims about the event and why she was incorrect in her statements and accusations.
You know, I didn't hear Chief Ballard make any statements. I saw something in the newspaper about the number of people that was there, which I believe she corrected herself. But I think the question that needs to be posed to Chief Ballard is why the excessive use of force. I think she had made some mention that there was, potential for unrest or something like this. And I don't know the quote that she made. I only heard hearsay. So I really don't want to speak as though this is what she said, quote unquote. But my experience was making up about what she said was that it was justified for her to have that much force there, when actually they were there all day. Their force was there from 1:30. They knew full well that it was a peaceful rally, and yet more and more patrol officers showed up. The paddy wagon was down the street. People were handing out zip ties. And so for her not to actually account for that, that's a problem. That's, to me, is a miss. To me, the whole thing, people on the mainland seen this thing. We've heard numerous people from the mainland say, I don't think I'm going to come to Hawaii now. From what I see, it's no longer an attractive place to have a vacation. That's sad. That should not be that way. So that's my sense about the chief. She never reached out to us. That's, to me, another miss. She could have cleared a lot of this up by just making a phone call. I don't know if she talked to the mayor. I didn't hear from the mayor, nor do I expect to hear from the mayor, and that's not some kind of a requirement that we should. I'm simply saying accounting for a miss is a simple way to open up the possibility for restoration, to open up and to re-engage or restate or reform integrity. I know the people that I talked to after the event, honestly, they're suspicious about the police department now. That's sad. That should not happen. We love the police, but when this kind of behavior happens, it undermines their integrity, and it makes people question, are they really for the people?
Do you have any call to action for the viewers?
I think, Aloha Freedom Coalition, and there's other groups out there that are standing like this, that have a desire for liberty for the people of Hawaii. Some action things would be, they need to get involved. You folks out there that are possibly viewing this video, maybe you've gone to our website, you're seeing this video, you're going to see some video images integrated with my conversation. Some action steps would be, you need to start reaching out to your legislators, reaching out to the Board of Health, reaching out to the mayor's office, the police office, and making your voice known. The people of Hawaii, the legislators and these people who are elected, they actually work for us. They work for you. So your role in this is to stand. You must stand. You must stand and say, we have our rights. The mandates do not set aside your constitutional rights. They do not. I know that there is a declaration out there that said we have an emergency. We do not have an emergency. So how do you define an emergency? Let me restate it that way. What is an emergency? I would say that you'd have a hard time actually explaining this being an emergency in a court of law. So am I going on a limb right now? Yes, I am. But am I speaking the truth? Yes, I am. So other action steps that you could do, you need to call the mayor's office. You need to call the police chief's office. Nobody's asking the question, like, how much money did they spend having 52 officers getting double time on a Saturday to watch a peaceful rally and then take 2 people away? These are hard questions, and these are questions that need to be asked, not for making somebody wrong, but so that there's an accounting and a conversation. We cannot have no transparency. We must have transparency. This idea that these things can go on and it's just pushed to the side. These are people. These poor kids have already been in counseling. This mother went to the hospital. Nobody's talking about that. I don't hear about that. What I hear is that AFC are a bunch of anti-vaxxers and max crazies and all this. Listen, we're about people's freedom. If people want to wear a mask, please wear a mask if that makes you feel comfortable. If you want to get a vaccine or a shot, if you want to do that, that's your choice. We're not saying you should not do what you want to do. We're about everybody's freedom, including yours. So we're not opposed to anything. What we're opposed to is being told what we have to do when we have a differing view. So my encouragement is to enroll, to engage with your public servants, to educate yourself. One of the main purposes of the rally was to bring education and clarity, accurate information so that people can make informed decisions. People must make informed decisions about their personal health, about their liberties, about what they can and can't do. This idea of a passport, a vaccine passport, this is a slippery slope. You must stand. That's the action.
Thank you very much, Gary.
My pleasure. Thank you.